Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video, and this is a paid request from one of my dear friends, Efree. Thank you so much for that. For those interested, requesting any type of videos, random thoughts, streams, commentaries, video game playthrough for an hour or full playthrough, whatever the case may be, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal. I do have a CashApp as well. Links are down below in the info box. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. And for those who sent them, thank you. I do appreciate it. So this one is for Ceasefire, a 1985 film, which is about a person dealing with the effects of kind of PTSD from Vietnam, which had a good chunk of these type of movies around this time period where Vietnam was still fresh in people's minds, and we were either getting POW movies like Uncommon Valor, we were getting action films like Missing in Action and Rambo First Blood Part 2, or dramas like this. And of course, then you would have Casualties of War, Platoon, Hamburger Hill, Full Metal Jacket, among others. Nowadays, you don't really see people making stuff about Vietnam. It may be referenced in like Consco Island, or what is it? Someone told me there's this dinosaur film called Primitive War. But in a more serious affair, not as much, because Vietnam is a very touchy subject, and that's why more than likely you'll see someone do a World War II movie than say a Vietnam movie, because World War II, there's the good guys, there's the bad guys, the Nazis. It's much more simple to utilize right and wrong, good and evil, while Vietnam is more of a still a sticking point for the country. A lot of people viewing that we never should have been there in the first place, that it was a war that was just a waste of a lot of human life on all sides. And what did it really result in the big scheme of things, other than a lot of heartache, a lot of death, and a lot of bullshit? So it just makes it more of a little bit more of a sticking point if someone's doing a film as to what to talk about, how to go forward with the story. But this, it's actually a pretty simple story. Don Johnson is the star of the film. I've always been a Don Johnson fan. I did not grow up with Miami Vice like other people did. I saw it later, and I liked particularly the first two seasons. I thought the first season was the best. When it got to season 3 onward, I thought it went kind of downhill. But I did like the first two seasons. But I remember Don Johnson for movies like Dead Bane. I think Dead Bane is a very criminally underrated film, directed by John Frankenheimer. It deserves like a better release in the U.S. But yeah, Dead Bane, very underrated film. He was in Cold in July. He's been in various other projects. He was, I think, Tin Cup he was in with Kevin Costner. Always like to see Don Johnson when he pops up in a film. He does a really good job here in his performance as a Vietnam veteran who is with his wife, Lisa Blount, who she's been in a few stuff. Sadly, she has passed away. And wait, there was something that she was in that I know I've seen her in. I'm trying to remember what that was. Sorry, Prince of Darkness. That's what it was. She was in Prince of Darkness, which I remember. But there's another one. Blind Fury, that's what it was. She was in Blind Fury with Rutger Hauer, as well as Prince of Darkness, the John Carpenter film. And she did a good job in all those as well. So she plays the wife. They have a couple kids, and he doesn't have a job. The first thing we see is he's trying to get unemployment, and he's got to fill this up, and someone gives him a pen. He comes back because he was told to just go back and bring it back, but the guy gives him a tough time, and he's like, well, why don't you shove this up your ass? And he's trying to deal, he's lovely with his wife and his kids, but there's something in the back of his head that is messing with him psychologically. Stuff that happened in Vietnam. In particular with a buddy of his played by Richard Chavez. Richard Chavez was Pancho in the original Predator. Of course, Pancho, always liked him in that film. He almost made it. He was with Arnold, but he got killed, and it was always too bad, but he almost made it. He's been in a few films here and there. He was a veteran of Vietnam. He did this podcast. I forget what it was called. Too Bit or Too Sweet. I forget. It was some. He did an interview, which I don't know if there's anything wrong with him, because he kind of talked like this, like through his teeth. Kind of talked like this. So I don't know if that's just how he talks, is like this or something. But I believe he was also in the War of the Worlds TV show, which I've never seen, but I've heard of. He did some stuff with Sonny Landham. But nice to see Richard Chavez. I wish we got to see more of him in the film, but it was nice to see him in there. But it's mostly about Don Johnson trying to deal with this PTSD. There's something buried within, and he'll have these bouts of anger. So, where he's like, I'm tired of people fucking with me, and he's arguing about the TV. Or he's having nightmares. Or he thinks he's back in Vietnam, and he's creeping around his house with a knife, and one of his kids sees it. Or he starts hanging out with this other guy who he saw at the unemployment line, Robert F. Lyons. He does a good job. Starts hanging out with him, partying with him, drinking with him. And he's relaxed with him, but when he's home with his wife, he gets agitated, even accidentally hits her at one point. And I thought it's a film that it's not wall-to-wall action, it's not a thriller, it is strictly a drama. But being a Don Johnson fan, it was nice to see him do a really good job. He's very emotional. As soon as that happens, he kind of going around places like a zombie, and he breaks down, and he apologizes. He's very heartfelt. It's a very emotional sequence. And I do like the Lisa Blount character, because obviously she has a right to be pissed, but you tell that she still loves her husband, tries to help, even at one point pushing him down and saying, it's not just you, it's us, and pretty much not giving up, and I'm not going to give up on you, and we're going to figure this out, and being pissed and angry, and apologizing and breaking down in emotion. A lot of good scenes, like some good acting moments in it. I would say that's the thing they get away from this movie. The takeaway from this movie, I should say, is if you like Don Johnson and you want to see him give a very solid emotional performance, that's the bread and butter of this movie, and that's the water heater wanting to get his opinion in. That's his approval of a thumbs up. But before we go on, the director of this film I thought was interesting, because it's David Nutter. And I'm like, that's not the same director, is it? And it is. He would go on to direct Disturbing Behavior. He did Transfers 4 and 5. I knew him as a director of X-Files episodes, including one of the best in season 1, Ice. The one that's like John Carpenter's The Thing. Mulder and Scully, I think it was in Antarctica, and what was it, Alaska? I can't remember where it was. It was in the snow, and it was a research post, and there was this worm thing that would get into people and cause them to rage out, and so it played a little bit like The Thing, the bit of paranoia. So Ice, that was directed by David Nutter. Same with Beyond the Sea, which tried to be a bit of Silence of the Lambs with Scully, and then the killer was played by Brad Dourif, who, through his psychic visions or whatever, has given her clues for this other killer. But also says that he did give a message to her and her dad, who passed away. Brad Dourif did a good job in that. He also did Tombs, the sequel to the episode Squeeze, where Toombs comes back and Mulder has to find him, and it ends with Toombs getting killed by an escalator, where he gets grounded up. ripped apart. So he did a couple pretty good episodes of The X-Files, and that's where I remember that name from at first. And I'm sure that's what led him to doing Disturbing Behavior. So it's weird. Like, I forgot he did Transfers 4 and 5, and then interesting that he started off doing films like this. So definitely a different path. He definitely got more into science fiction after this. And this film, I don't know if it did anything because I had never heard of this film before until he sent me the request. I'd never heard of this film. I don't even know if this film has a DVD or anything. I think the only time you can find it is VHS quality. So I'm assuming this was only on VHS. But yeah, it's pretty much a story about a guy trying to deal with what happened in Vietnam and trying to figure out how to deal with his anger, his PTSD, and his rage, fits of rage. Until eventually he gets in part of a therapy group, a veteran therapy group, which you do get to see a little bit about. Part of me wish we could have seen a bit more with the therapy group. A little bit more with the other characters in there. A little more delving into different parts of that therapy. You do see and hear a bit with one guy telling a story, dealing with this baby, and what happened with that. I'm not going to get into details of that. And you see he's getting a bit better. I think he actually does get a job. Things seem to be working out until some, I have some drama in the third act, which I'm going to get into, spoilers, but I would say if you're into dramas that do deal with the Vietnam War and people having to, which sadly a lot of people did have to deal with that after they came home, a lot of the effects of the shell shock, the PTSD, the horror, and then when they came home, it's not like they were parades. It's because they lost. You guys are losers. You lost. And then other people, you're baby killers, and you did all this other. So you have certain parts of the country saying you're losers. You have certain parts of the country saying you're baby killers. Very far distance from the war heroes or World War II. Like you never see them do the war heroes of Vietnam. You never see that. So then it's like you're psychologically all that you went through, don't get me wrong, people in other wars went through it as well, including World War II. But then you don't even get the honor, the fame, the praise, none of it. You just kind of pushed aside as if you're nothing. You're treated horribly. Unless they bid me a been there, I knew what the hell they're yapping about. I always think of the scene where Stallone breaks down in First Blood, which is a great acting moment. Yes, it shows that Stallone is a damn good actor. Don't give a fuck what anyone says. And Don Johnson did a great job here. I think Richard Chavez got a part in an episode of Miami Vice, didn't he? I'll make sure. Yeah, he did. I don't remember which episode. D.A. Gordon in episode Teresa. I think Helena Bonham Carter was in that episode. Because I think Richard Chavez said at one point he was up for the Edward James Olmos part, but he didn't get that. But he said that Don Johnson was very nice and stood up for him and said, hey, this guy's a Vietnam veteran. I worked with him on this movie Ceasefire, and I think it helped at least get him that part in that episode. So I know Richard Chavez. Well, actually, let me look up what interview that was. All I have to do is go here and put interview and $2 late fee, 80s movie podcast. That's what it was, and it's about, I don't know, like 50 minutes in or so, 55 minutes that he talked about. He didn't go too in depth, but he talked a little bit about Don Johnson, how nice he was, so that was cool. Seems like a very nice guy. Sad that he didn't get to do a whole lot more. The reason I was talking about like the way he tells, I hope he's doing. I mean, this was from 10 months ago, so I hope health wise he's doing well. Because trying to talk like this, he's trying to talk like this. It's like I hope everything's okay. Listen, I wish he was in the film more, but he's only in the Vietnam flashbacks, which are few and far in between. But yeah, very good Don Johnson. I don't want to get into spoilers starting now. Just what happens is he talks with his buddy Robert Lyons that he's been hanging out from time to time, and he's calling, "Hey, how's everything going? How'd everything go with the wife?" Because they're separated, and he's like, "She filed for divorce. She found someone else that she wants to be with." Don Johnson's trying to talk to him, trying to calm him down, and then he hears a gunshot. Great reaction from Don Johnson, great emotional reaction. Not cringe, over the top, silly, just very real. He goes off, he runs, it's too late, and then he breaks down, and then he starts like going back to being in Vietnam, and his woman has to stop him. His woman has to help him. I like that, a woman standing by their man. That's nice to see. Just not always the case in movies. But yes, seems like a wife who actually does care about her husband, actually wants to fight for her husband, that knows that her husband's going through bad things, is not being, selfish and stuff. It's okay to be a bit selfish, you worry about you and your kids, of course, but sometimes they go too far and it's like, did you ever give a shit about your husband? But here you definitely tell she does care and love this guy, and thought that was nice. And he breaks down and says how he needs help, and then you get him coming in, going one-on-one with the guy who leads the vet group and telling his story, which I guess he also reiterates to the group, because it starts with the one-on-one, and when the story ends, he's part of the group and they all hug him and stuff. So what happened was, in Vietnam, him and the soldiers, they found this village, they found this well, and there were bodies in there, very, like, you tell that they were eaten up, rats, tortured, all sorts, like just bloody remains. Very old. With the VHS quality, it's hard to see some of the stuff. I can imagine how it'd be if it was cleaned up, the film. But you get the gist of it. A battle happens. Don Johnson gets a guy to the chopper. He's like, wait, there's another guy coming. But they're like, we gotta go because we'll be shot down. Richard Chavez comes in. He's like, wait. And Don Johnson, very good, very animated, very scared. No, no, no. I saw the well. I saw the well. Pretty much knowing that if Richard Chavez is caught, how much horror and torture he's going to go through. So in order to save him from that, he gets a gun and he shoots him. So that he's not caught in unbelievable torture and stuff. So that's where the PTSD comes from, is that he had to kill his friend. Again, I kind of wish there was a bit more scenes between him and Richard Chavez to really show much more of them as a team, them as a group, them as friends. There are bits here and there, but maybe just a little bit more. There's a little bit where he shows like pictures and stuff, but but it's fine. So he breaks down, and then the next thing you know, he's at the memorial. Hugs his wife, and now he's able to move on. So, but yeah, it's a film that you've seen done a few times, where again people are dealing with the issues of Vietnam. So I wouldn't say it's original, but it settles on Don Johnson's performance, and he gives it his all. He does a really good job, as does Robert Lyons, as does Lisa Blount. Everybody does a good job. So it's well acted, some good emotions in there. that's what was promised, and that's what it delivers. So it does a good job on that front. So there you go. With that said, thanks for watching. Take care, and we will see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.